walk. It's a seemingly easy exercise. If you're in a traditional gym, doing bicep curls or whatever, you're probably familiar with this task. But in Cyphus, we actually walk the distance of the field while you're doing it, which requires a deal of coordination and stability and balance and whatnot. And since we're curling plates, it's important that you kind of know the grip and how we do it. So you're holding it like this, like 9 and 3 o'clock on the plate. Have the numbers of the plate face your lap to start off with. So this way you're starting in a nice, like fully extended position where your elbows are not like bent at all. And you're gonna put your elbows in at your side. Okay, that's gonna be really important for later. But keep your elbows in at your side, and then you're gonna come up and curl the plate. Okay, so we're walking, but I just wanna show you stationary first. It looks like this. Okay, now, so when I'm doing that, I'm holding the plate, I curl it up, so that way the numbers and the wording on the plate is facing away from you. So it's here, like that. And the reason that is because if we don't do that, especially with a 45-pound plate, you're not going to be able to go the full range of motion, because what's going to happen is you're going to lower the plate and it's going to hit like right here. So in day 1, day 2, you're probably going to know that Cyphus, that you just, when you curl it, you come all the way down, full range of motion. Now, just like all of our carries, you have like a number that you're trying to get rep-wise, and with a curl walk, it's a 6+. So again, it'll say curl walk on the board, 6+. That means you do at least 6 one way, at least 6 the other way. And that's just kind of giving you a gauge and giving everyone kind of a uniform number to try to attain. Now, some of the things on this one, momentum's one of the big things that can kind of derail your curl walk. Your grip is another one. And just being fatigued, that you're fatigued to the point to where you're giving into the weight. Now, like an adage that I always kind of say in my head is, control the weight, don't let the weight control you. And this is very true for this one. And I'll show you the first thing I'll see done incorrectly is giving into the weight and kind of letting gravity take over. So if you're curling down with the weight and you give in like this, it means, actually let me show you stationary, like kind of like this. If you go down with the weight and then pull it back up and down with the weight like that, it means either the weight's too heavy for you, but with Cyphus, if you're using a 25, 35, or 45, we got to make sure that you're able to curl it and it's not too heavy for you. But if you're able to do one curl correctly, that means you should be able to do at least 6 correctly. And if that means you got to do one curl, stop, another curl, stop, and then another curl until you get 6, that's the way it shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be something where you're going to just trudge through this and do it with poor form just to try to get it up. That's not how this is designed. It's supposed to be precise form throughout the entirety of the task. So, if you're giving into the weight, you're probably already really, really fatigued. So I would urge you first to rest and then go when you're ready. The other thing is you may not be like fully aware of it, but what you're probably trying to do, your biceps are trying to tell you to do, is to diminish your angle of which you have to curl on the next one. So if you're only coming down here and you're stopping yourself, your biceps are trying to stop yourself, you're naturally going to go forward. So your torso is going to go forward because your body's your biceps are tense. So what you should do is just kind of like lower it and still have a little tension because you got to not just let it fall down, but like lower the weight and fully stretch out your bicep while you're working or while you're walking. Okay, so if you're doing this and fully going all the way down, you're going to get a full range of motion. You're going to allow your biceps to stretch out a little bit and then come up for the next one. Now, there's something called a breaking point. Okay, so when you kind of like get past that like stretching part of the rep, when you get here, that's where it's going to feel like you're kind of at this point to where you can't contract the weight up, and that's going to make it tough for the curl up. So if you're finding that if you're doing this principle of form and you're now trying to do it the right way and it's harder to get up, it's because you weren't hitting that breaking point before. So what we're trying to do is get to that breaking point, get past it, full range of motion, come back up. Okay. The other thing, again, with your torso, if you're going forward like this, the next natural movement for you is going to be this. And that means you're trying to throw the weight back up and using momentum that way. All things that would not be good if you're walking with weight. So the other thing is, first I'll say elbows. The elbows get flared out, and it all comes down to your body trying to decrease the angle at which it's trying to curl. So if you're out here, as opposed to here, it doesn't have to go as far. And so maybe unwillingly or unaware, your body's just trying to naturally make it easier for itself to get the weight up. But that's your job to override your arms and say, no, I'm going to pin them right at my side and do it the right way. Same thing here now with grip. I'll see this a lot, like kind of like flicking of the wrist rather than full range of motion, to the point to where what it should be is your plate's here, it's coming all the way up and down. If you're to the point to where you're curling the weight and you're kind of pulling it in, that would be another no-no, because what's happening there, again, it's decreasing the angle. You're coming up good, and then you pull it back. The goal of this task, and a lot of tasks with the weight, is not to get the plate to the destination, is to control it to its destination. So, elbows in, come all the way up, all the way down. I mean, you can just do it without the weight. If you're just standing like, in front of your computer or whatever, if you stand here, put your elbow like right in at your like midsection, and just bring your hand up and don't move it at all. That should be the direction in which you curl. And I know this seems so basic, and I'm spending a lot of time on curl walk, but there's so many tasks that stem from kind of curl walks. So I would just say, if you do this and you notice that that's your range of motion, and you're not doing that with a curl walk, you should kind of reevaluate how you're doing it. And the last one I'm going to show that I saw yesterday, for like the first time in like probably forever, was I noticed that one person was doing this right here. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm resting the heel or the bottom of the plate up against like my lower abdomen, and I'm just curling like that. So what I'm doing effectively is resting all the hard part of the weight, like on my, not belly, but just above it or below it, and I'm just moving the plate to my chest. Like I said, I don't think I've ever seen that before, but I just want to make sure that people don't think that you can just rest it here and curl like that, because that's just completely taking the weight off of where it's supposed to be hitting, and it's almost as easy as a Tarzan. So watch out for all of those on a curl walk. I know I spent a lot of time on it, but it's an important one. All right, next is decaf. It's called decaf because we have a plate push, which we did in the last segment, called caffeinator. And so I was thinking of like caffeine and decaf, and that's kind of how I put those two together. Decaf is the same type of idea with the push of caffeinator, but you're just crawling. So it's going to be a bear crawl hands. You should know what that is. And your legs are almost completely locked. You're going to have a little bend in the knees, but you're not really using your quads. And you're just going to walk the length of the field, but only by doing like these little pulses with your toes. So it looks like this. I like to do all my knuckles. Okay. Now that was kind of like 60%, I would say. What you are allowed to do is to really push off hard with your toes. And you can go up in a pike position, like not completely straight. I mean, that wouldn't really be helpful. But the the higher up you're able to like push off with your toes, you're going to be able to cover a little bit more ground. So you're all right to do that. We just want to make sure that what you're not doing is using your quads to spring upward. So this would be okay. Okay. I know that when I originally designed this task, I said that you want to stay flat. That's almost impossible. And I think that actually you get more of a burn in your calves if you're actually pushing off hard and going up. So there's that, but just again, you want to make sure that you're not coming from your quads. On this one, it's going to be a little natural for your feet to move a little bit side to side like a mastodon. That's okay because it's really unavoidable, but It's a very tough task because you're probably doing, I don't know, 30, 40 reps just trying to get to one end zone. So try not to get too far ahead of yourself. Stay with the pain of that one in the calves and just trudge through. The next task is called Hellion, and it is exactly that. It is, I believe Frankie, when he worked for us, came up with the name. It is a mixture between your Diablo and a reverse inchworm. Reverse inchworm is going to be one of our hardest tasks we have, and mixed with the Diablo, it's very hard. But the things we really want to pay attention to is the continuance idea, meaning wherever it is that you're leaving the plate, that's where you're going to pick up if you're either resting or transitioning, like this one, transitioning into the next movement. So just for uniformity, we're going to say you're going to start off with the reverse inchworm. I suppose it's all right to start off with the Diablo, but it wouldn't really be beneficial. Like if you're in the end zone, starting off with the Diablo. So you'll start off with the reverse inchworm. I can explain that at another time or a different video. But you want your hands here, so really close to the plate. Your feet are inside the plate, and you're going to bring your knees downward towards the turf, push back, and what you're going to do is your backward crawl, which is your reverse inchworm. But instead of setting your hands down here and then getting ready to continue into the rest of the reverse inchworm, what you're going to do is put your hands on the plate, on the ridge of the plate. You're going to pick up, kick the feet back, and then you're going to pull it back into what we call a Diablo. All right, so let me do like a couple reps, like full length here. Reverse inch, crawl back, hands on the plate, Diablo, get it back to where you want to set it. I like to put my hands down at this point, and then you put your feet back inside the dish. There, crawl back. Okay, that's Hellion. I'm going to do it one more time just so you get a good view. Okay. I'm going to do it one more time back just so you see the full thing. Okay. Now it's very tough to do the transition from the end of the Diablo, so from this point here to now getting your feet inside the plate. Because, I mean, if your hands are right here, like right in front of the plate, you're gonna have to put your hands out, or at least in front, to be able to jump your feet back into the plate. But again, you still want to get here, bring the hands closer to before you push off. Just be aware of that. So obviously it's one of those tasks where the faster you go, you're going to get sloppy if you're not careful. So I would just say take this task in stride. Go really slow, stay with it, and be aware of what you're trying to achieve with each movement. For me, if I'm not present with my body when I'm doing it, I can lose my focus and where my feet are going to try to land and stuff, because that's important too. If you're trying to kick back anywhere in the vicinity of the plate, you're probably just going to land randomly. But if you're someone who likes to, keep your feet like on the front part of the ridge, try to still hit that spot, so that way you're always hitting the same spot over and over again. I like to go on the back, so I like to place my foot there, and it allows me to get a little bit back a little bit further before the reverse inch. So just be aware of the movements that you're trying to do. And just like any inchworm, no knees on that task. Anything that's pretty much an inchworm, we don't go to our knees. If you're gonna rest, stand up, or you can stay in this position as you're about to start your next reverse inchworm, but don't go to your knees, because whenever you go to your knees, you're cutting off the plank. We want you to support your body weight. And if you go to your knees, you don't know, for continuance purposes, it'll be tough for the pro to decide like whether or not you finish the reverse inch or whatever the task is, if it's reverse inchworm or single leg inch, whatever. All right, the next task is called Miel's Wheels. A lot of our exercises are named after other people who have either done Cyphus or are the ones that actually came up with the task. Now, Miel's Wheels is named after Andy Miel. He was one of one of my former professional hockey players that I used to train a couple of years back. And great player, like extremely gifted. He was a Hobie Baker winner, I think, in 2006 or 2007, and that's like the Heisman Trophy for NCAA hockey. So, he'd be in here, and it'd be a group of us guys in the summers, and before we'd ever start like classes, I would always catch him essentially like skateboarding the plate. He would always want to do this. He'd be like, "Hey, Mike, can we do this today?" And I always thought he was joking. But I messed around with him, like that's actually not a bad idea. I thought maybe there wouldn't be enough, I thought it'd be too heavy for us to be like on our weight and all of our weight on the plate. But it works out well as long as you're not in like Harrison Township in like August. But the way we do this, and the way I usually do explain it to other people is like you're skateboarding the plate, but you're gonna put your foot either on the inside ridge, or I guess that would be the outside technically, or on the inside here, like right in front of the hole. If you do it anywhere else, your foot's gonna like wander and it's gonna be hard to push the plate. So I would say, let me give you a little suggestion too. If you are on a turf and it's sticky, so if it's humid or there's a lot of people in there and the plates are just not moving, I would suggest putting your foot on the front part where the hole of the plate is. It creates less drag on the front when you're doing this. But normally, I'm usually using the front part of it. So I'm right here while I'm pushing it because I feel like I have more control over the plate and the way I'm going. So I would say use those two things to your advantage and just plan accordingly. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of be in this low like half squat crook position and you're going to push sideways. So it's here. Okay, coming back the other way, it'd be like this. Okay, it's really slick in here right now, so I don't have to exert much energy. But a couple of the things that I would say you'd want to look out for is bending too much on this front knee. Like the one that's, the knee that has the plate, I almost kind of keep it straight because what I'm doing is I'm pushing from my heel. I push from my heel because it allows me to steer the plate easier. And if you're like wandering all over the turf, it's going to make it harder for you. So just like crook, when I teach crook, I'm down and I lead with my heel like that, or shuffle. I don't really lead with my heel, but you want to make sure that your heel is like lined up kind of with your knee and push. It's going to make it a little bit not easier to push the plate, but control it. Now, with that, if your heel is not like leading the way and not being controlled, your toe's going to open out, and that's going to like distribute the weight like kind of like towards the rear. So if it looks like this, it should be like here while you're pushing. But if you're opened up like that, you're going to start veering off course, and it's really hard to not only go where you're trying to go, but you're also not really pushing off the glute where you should be. Not the pain, but the fatigue should be right here, kind of like in the rear part of your butt, but back like that. If you do enough of these, your hips and glutes are on fire. And another thing is don't be so tall. If you're really tall and you're like this, it's not really that effective. You want to be low and solid. And I kind of want to correct what I said a second ago. When I said straight leg, I didn't mean straight leg, I meant like stiff leg. The one that's got the plate with it, you're like stiffer here, while the other one, the back one, is pushing off. So stiff leg, don't lock the leg, and have fun skateboarding, I guess, on the turf. The next one is called Hack It, and I named it after myself because my favorite task is Diablo, and this is a single leg Diablo. So when I came up with it, I thought, if I liked a regular Diablo, I'd like one with one leg probably more. But it's quite a bit harder, and it's got a different area that you're kind of hitting, I would say, more so. When you're doing this one, it's really important to think about your weight being back, more so like on your rear end and like back here, because you don't want to put any unneeded pressure on that front knee, the one that's like pulling the plate. So keep that in mind when I show you. What you're going to do is you're going to be here, your toes kind of lined up at the center of the plate, hands on the side, you're gonna come back and only that far and pull it back. So you're looking like this. You know, it's hard for me to do it like half speed. Let me show you my other leg here. Now you see how I kind of got a rhythm there? That's really important with this one. If you go slowly, like take a step, pull it in, slow, take a step, pull it, it's gonna feel like an eternity. And that's why we don't do that one very often, because you're only able to go back so much to where your toe is. So unlike Diablo, where you're able to, you know, kind of pull it back, really get like all the way between the feet and pull it back. This one you're only limited, you are limited to as far back as you can get with your foot. And it's impossible to go back any further than really, you know, this, because if you go back too far, like that, you're not gonna be able to pull the weight back at all. And that's true of any crawl, like reverse bear, anything reverse except for like bear crawl. If you're going too far back with like a plank and you need to lift your hands up, you won't be able to do that because your whole body weight's going forward. So what we want to stress is making sure that, you know, your weight's back here, and it's almost exclusively a lower body task. Even though you're supporting your upper body with your hands, it's almost exclusively a leg task. It's like you're almost jumping backwards, like that, but you're supporting yourself with your upper body just to stabilize. So that's a tough one, it's a good one. Call hack it and enjoy that one. Reverse bear is the next one, and reverse bear is not something that Cyphus claims to have invented or anything like that. Bear crawls have been around for a while. Reverse bear, we do them probably differently than most people, not most people, but what I see a lot in like magazines and stuff is people look, a lot of times they'll go like, they'll be like really low and they'll go like elbow to elbow, or they'll go opposite elbow to, like opposite elbow, opposite elbow. We have a different task that's similar to that called a night crawler. And then we got another one, I forgot what the name is off the top of my head. But what I want to point out is, you're going to do your reverse bear hands, like just really basically it's this. That's all you're doing. But what I'm trying to highlight in this video is avoiding the wobble, or kind of what I call like the speed skate crawl. So I do have a task that's, what is it called? I think it's called yogi, or I don't know. We have a skating bear and we have a reverse skating bear essentially, because we're trying to avoid this. When I see some people get going, like too fast, like their upper body's going faster than their lower body can keep up, that's what it turns into. It's like they're going so fast, it's that fast. The idea is to not be so wide and still have a great deal of weight on both your upper and your lower body. Because as soon as it starts morphing into something else, it could be a growler, it could be a reverse mongoose, we want to kind of have all points on the turf almost at all times. You can go fast, but don't spend too long being up, okay? And that's where most of our crawls came from, is just doing a basic bear crawl faster in a different way. So all right, let's reel it in. Let's differentiate between a bulldog and a growler and a mongoose. So more tasks come along the way. Same thing with like regular bear crawl. I'll see people kind of cross their feet over. Well, we have a cross bear, we just don't use it that often. So just make sure you're not doing that. The other thing is, make sure you're not just bending at your hips and you're not using your knees. If you're doing that too much, what I'll see is this, like, I'm surprised I can do that. What it is kind of like you're totally disengaging your quads and you're just using your hips. And so it's like an upper body exercise, but at the same time you're lifting a lot of weight off of your upper body. So you're like in a pike position, like this. You don't want to do that. You're being stiff and rigid. What you want to do is still be kind of loose, make sure all your joints are working in coordination with each other, and just stay lower. I would say don't be in the pike position. Stay almost like this the whole way. Okay? Like keep the hands and the feet moving simultaneously together. Okay? So if I'm going faster, I'm like that. Final thing is, pay attention to the distance each foot goes. So what I mean is, if Your right foot always seems to take a longer stride than your left foot. Try to be aware of that. You don't want to be like the left foot's going there, and like the left foot's only going a little bit and the right foot's going a lot further, because that really kind of throws off your mojo and it looks like a different crawl if you're doing that. So try to make sure each stride is moving together and equally. And I bet you probably didn't realize there's so many nuances to reverse bear, but that's reverse bear. All right, let's look at sawed off. Sawed off is your traditional strength training exercise called a bent over row, like a dumbbell bent over row. But what we're gonna do, put your hands inside the hole of the plate, not up here because you're not gonna be able to go a full range of motion when you're doing the row. You're gonna be like this, and you're gonna wanna stay nice and square, shoulders square to the turf, and you're gonna pull up. Okay, I'm not showing you the full thing right now because I wanna show you from the side, like this. The first thing is the base of your movement. We're cool with you guys kind of resting on your quad like that, here resting. If you want to get more out of your exercise, more out of the task, don't rest. You know, you're going to hold it like this. If you're here, you're holding it like this. You're going to get a lot more core stability, and the reason is because you're not pushing off. You don't have that point of stability to help pull the weight. The other thing is whatever hand you're pulling with, that opposite foot is going to be back, so it has room for the plate to be right underneath your body. Posture on this one's really important. I try to make my back really, really flat to the turf, like parallel with the turf. If you're up like this, you're not hitting your back. This task is designed for your rear delts, essentially. You get your biceps and you get a little bit of, you don't really get lats, but you know, behind your shoulder blades, like right here is kind of where we're going for. So if you're standing up like tall, you're not really hitting that area. You're going to be doing a little bit of biceps, making traps in there, but you're not doing the full range of motion. If you're using like a dumbbell in a traditional gym setting, you'd be pulling like right to your midsection, and you're keeping the weight close to you, and you're squeezing back here. Same idea, coming up just like that. Now watch my shoulders. What I will see people do, just like curl walk or any type of carry, people will use momentum. You don't want to do this. I know we call it sawed off, so maybe you're thinking in your head you're sawing something really hard like a log. It's called that because it looks like it, but it doesn't mean like kind of completely jerk. Like when I see people doing this, I think more of like a lawnmower than a saw. But what you want to do is stay square, stay strong, because that takes out any extra movement of your body, and it forces the muscle that's supposed to be doing the action to work. And then that also kind of proves my point about taking your elbow off, making it harder. You have to stabilize. I'm falling off balance right now doing it, but it forces your whole body to kind of like be really tense and stable in a good way, and just focus on just doing the pull in, okay? So pay attention to your base, your posture, and then pretty much like how you're like torquing at all. So that is sawed off, really good exercise, even better when you do it on the turf with a plate as opposed to a dumbbell. All right, we're running a little tight on time. I got a class about to start, so I'm going to try to show you two more really quickly. Infinity, very basic. It's called infinity because what you're doing is making an infinity like sign. You know what that is? It's like a figure eight essentially with your feet. Okay. So usually when I teach a class that has infinity in the workout, what I will do is I will draw essentially like an hourglass or a figure eight with like number 1, 2, 3, and 4, so people can follow the pattern. I'm going to use this line as a kind of a way to show you how we do it. But if you're at one of the other turfs with the triangles in the turf, you can use those triangles. That's why I made those triangles there for things like V-step and infinity, and I can talk about that another time. What you could do is if you got your triangle, you could start at one triangle, jump to the other angle, over to the other side, up, and across. So I think that was it. But it'll be two triangles kind of stacked together, and it should make like four corners in like almost a diamond position. If you just count the corners that you're going to, you'll be able to do your infinity correctly. And that's one of the functions of that little bar. But just using this line, what I would say is we'll start in like the lower right-hand corner. You're gonna go up, over, that's 1, here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay? You do 20 of those. Now, I like to count my revolutions around the infinity, so when I count, I usually go 1, and I'll do 5 of those. So that way you're hitting all 4 corners 5 times, you got 20. It's not a bad exercise, it's just one of those ones to kind of just do something different, get a little bit of cardio, maybe a rest depending on who you are. Try to go full range of motion on that, meaning try to bend a little bit, come up, over, back. I mean, you can make that infinity pretty big, but we try to make sure that you're at least going over that center bar in your end zone. And hands on the line, 20, that's infinity. One for this week's called denser. Denser is just like very similar to pinned, open, all those tasks where you're going to be walking a suicide when you do this. But this one, your plate's going to be up like pinned, but you're going to push inward. So maybe just kind of like to the untrained eye, it looks like I'm doing open. But instead, what I'm doing is I have the plate up, and I'm trying to condense the plate. That's why I gave it the name denser, because you're trying to condense all that weight of the plate really, really like far inward. If you're doing it right, it's tough to do the entire suicide length of the turf. What you're going to do is push like this, and you're pushing hard. There's a little muscle underneath your pecs and like where your rib cage is, called your serratus. And when you do that, I mean, it's one of the only tasks that we have that I can feel like the next day I'm like, wow, I hit that area pretty good. So it's like that. You're also going to get your lats in there, because what you're doing is you're really squeezing downward with your lats. And again, Cyphus, most of the stuff's in the frontal plane, meaning it's in front of your body, you're crawling. So it's a really important task to kind of develop some maybe underdeveloped areas of your body doing Cyphus. So just like that, walking a suicide. Make sure the plate's like against your chest or a little bit out. It shouldn't be out here, but you also should be pulling backwards like pinned and taking some of that pressure off, because as soon as you're resting it on your chest or like really having contact, it's going to make it easier and your elbows may come back. They should be almost like parallel. The plate, your elbow and your wrist should be almost like parallel, like in line with the plate. As soon as you pull it back like this, your elbows will probably naturally want to come back. So stay out. And I just had this discussion with some of the pros here. They were like, can you keep it up against your chest? And I was saying no, but what I was trying to say is, it's like right at my chest, but I'm pushing it in, and I'm not actually like putting it on my chest, if that makes sense. I'm pushing in right at my chest. It's not against my chest, because I'm not taking any of the weight of the plate on my chest. I'm taking it and pushing it together, and that's how I'm holding it up. So when you're doing this task, try to be aware of, okay, I'm trying to hold it right here, and the way I'm holding it up is by pushing my hands together, okay? So that's denser, difficult one, good one, and try that one out next time.